last year. The Home Affairs Committee was told, this is an unbelievable figure, that up to 2% of the entire male population of Albania aged between 20
This is Jeremy
and 40,
Kyle. This is the man who was dumped by
have arrived on small boats this
ITV.
year in this country. The reason they're arriving on small boats is they can't go through the visa process.
He's talking about Albanians.
They have broken the law. These men, we're not talking about economic migrants, people escaping war-torn areas. We're talking about 10,000 Albanian criminals.
No, he doesn't know. No, they're not necessarily criminals. No, you don't know. Some of them may be. But many of them may indeed be working on farms. No. Look, there are plenty of people who are coming over to this country illegally to work on farms, to do labouring that actually we need, and they can't get the permits to do it, so they're coming here illegally, working, and then taking the money back with them when they leave. There are plenty of people who are doing this. They're not necessarily criminals. They're not coming here legally, but we have made it so difficult with our Home Office visa system that they can't do it. And our farmers are suffering. Our farmers have been suffering for years because we haven't got the systems for picking crops any longer. We haven't got the systems. We stopped this years ago. This was all part of the nonsense. You know, this goes back to Mrs. May and her crazy hostile environment.
Infesting our country and committing crime. Do you not think, as an MP in that sort of area, because I'm hearing from hundreds of people today, that is an absolutely dreadful thing to be happening in 2022 in the United Kingdom?
Jeremy, you are fairly plain and straight talking, and you know so am I. And actually, what you've just said is emotive, corrosive, offensive drivel. There are not 10,000 Albanian criminals coming in.
There aren't.
Hang on. Either we're going to have a sensible conversation about this or we're not. If we're going to have a sensible conversation, yes, there are serious issues that need to be addressed. But don't start using Nigel Farage's language because I'll switch off.
So you're telling me there aren't 10,000 migrants from Albania, criminals who have come into this country?
That is not what you said. Yeah, you said 10,000 criminals.
10,000 Albanian migrant men between 20 and 42% of their population.
We've now taken the argument down a notch. We're now talking about 10,000 Albanian men. That is correct. But don't describe them emotively and irrationally as 10,000 criminals, because they aren't.
They're not criminals. They're not criminals.
There are no doubt within them some people who have committed offences in Albania. That has to be dealt with. But let's have a sensible conversation about this.
All right, let's have a sensible question then. If let's say 10,000 Albanian men arrive, Sir Roger, on boats. Let me put this to you then, if you want a sensible conversation. If they're not criminals, why don't they go through the process of gaining a visa and coming to this country legally?
The answer to that is, as with every other, and you said these are not economic migrants. Those are your words. Actually, they are economic migrants, and they can't get visas. And they wouldn't be able to get in legally. Quite properly, they wouldn't be able to get in legally, and that's why they're coming through illegal routes. Now, do I find that wrong? Yes, of course I do. But let's get this onto an even keel and start talking about the real issue.
Well, the real issue is...
Hang on, the complexion of the people who are coming into the country by boat has changed dramatically in the last probably 8 to 10 weeks. Prior to that, we were talking about refugees from Afghanistan, from Syria, from war-torn regimes. Of course, the Ukrainians are coming in legally. That's a separate issue. I'm not seeking to condone it, but nevertheless, I can understand why people from Afghanistan, for example, were coming in. That has changed in the last probably 8 weeks from the people that were coming in to now very large numbers of young Albanian men coming from a regime that is perfectly safe. I've been to Albania several times myself when I was on the Council of Europe. I know the country. It's a democratic country. Okay, it's still developing, but it's a democratic country.
It is.
And they are coming in wholly illegally. That is wrong.
Right, let's cut to the chase with that then. Let's agree on one thing. Last year, the Home Office, and we've seen so much this week about your new man allowing Suella Braverman, I don't even want to talk about that, 4% of applications from last year have been processed. You and I would agree on this, Sir Roger. I'm not blaming Rishi Sunak, I'm not blaming Boris Johnson or Liz Truss, I'm blaming successive governments. Do you not, as a member of this country, find it absolutely grating and appalling that we do not seem to still have a system that can deal with this problem, because it isn't going away, and whether politicians like it or not, it's the number one thing that people want to talk about. Why is it seemingly so impossible, Sir Roger, to come up with an answer?
The reason that we haven't got an answer is because we've taken completely the wrong approach. Successive Home Secretaries, Mrs. Patel and now Mrs. Braverman, are wedded to the idea that you can ship people off to Rwanda and that's going to solve the problem. It won't. One, it won't work. Two, it's not legal. And three, it will be hugely costly, even if it were to work at all.
What would work?
I would be very surprised if 300 people were sent to Rwanda between now and whenever.
OK, let's do what we accuse the Labour Party the whole time of doing. What would you say is the answer to a situation whereby, and let me just say this, Roger, you took exception to me saying criminals. I maintain, maybe not all 10,000, but I maintain there are criminals within that number. But let's look at the whole process. You've described Albania, and I've had loads of texts about this, as a democratic country. For some reason, in a democratic country, OK, it seems to be still attractive to come to a country that's frankly on its knees and its people are frustrated and hacked off with how difficult it is. That is not hyperbole. That is an absolute fact. What would you do or say to the people listening and watching today who say, why the hell can we not have systems in place to stop this happening because the people are getting fed up? What would you say?
Because whether you like it or not, and I like it or not, and I don't, well, I don't mind the international law, but I don't like the way that it's working at the moment. We have to abide by international law. What we've done up until now, basically, the last two homes, well, the current and the previous Home Secretary, have adopted what I have described as dog whistle policies. It's populist, it's playing to the gallery, it's meeting the answers to the people who are saying, I don't like, there's too many bloody foreigners in this country, and I don't like them. That is not the way to approach this. If we're going to solve the problem, and we've got to, we have to do it on a pan-European basis. We have to work with the French. We have to establish proper relationships. And we have to make sure that there is a system in place that means that the southern borders of Europe are not porous in the way that they are at the moment. Because actually, it's not only Europe. If you come from the Dominican Republic, if you come from Guadeloupe, which is a French overseas territory, you're in the European Union. And you might just as well be at Calais waiting for a boat to come across the channel. And by the way, these people are not coming from camps in Calais.
No.
I discovered yesterday when I visited Manston, a lot of them, the overwhelming majority of the Albanians, are paying large sums of money, are being trafficked through, the Home Secretary told me I wasn't to use the word traffic, but my view is that it is being trafficked. They're being trafficked through Germany and Belgium. They overnight in Germany or Belgium, literally cross the beach.
Do you understand people's frustration that we are the final destination? You know, I hear all this rubbish.
I do, yes, absolutely I do.
I hear all this rubbish about war. Listen, I said it earlier. You know, actually, I'm going to take you to task. Well, I'm not going to take you to task, Roger. The viewers are going to take you to task big time.
That's fine by me.
You want to get in the real world. This is about 100 people. If the Albanians are entering our country, please ask this of Sir Roger, illegally, as you admit, then they're by definition criminals, aren't they, Sir Roger?
No, not in the sense that you've sought to say. I mean, you were talking about the implication is that these people are knife-carrying rapists and murderers. No, they're not. They're on exactly.
But there are many who are from organised gang culture.
They're on exactly the same. I was going to say plane. I haven't been aeroplane. They're on exactly the same level as Afghanistan's or people.
I do think there is. I do believe, though. Sorry, we'll agree to disagree. I do believe a large number of them come from organised gangs, and I think they infiltrate. Going back to it, whether it's Home Secretary, what?
Produce the evidence. There's no evidence to suggest that. There are organised criminals trafficking them into.
So they're criminals.
No, the people who are trafficking them most certainly are criminals.
But if they weren't doing, but if they're going down the human trafficking route, this is what I don't understand. I'm like, you said to me, you'll switch off. I need you to answer this question. If they are going down the human trafficking route and they're not really vulnerable, are they? I understand if you're leaving a war-torn country and a human trafficker says to you, I can find you a better life. But if you come from, as you describe it, a democratic country, and you're saying they're not criminals, why don't they go down the bloody visa route? Why are they going down the human trafficking route?
Because, Jeremy, they won't get visas. And
why?
You can't differentiate between... You talked about criminality and you said, well, these people are criminal because they're using a criminal route. Well, I'm sorry, on that basis, the Afghans and the Syrians are also criminals because they're using a criminal route, in your terms, your words, not mine. I don't regard that as criminal. I regard the people who are trafficking them as highly criminal, making a lot of money out of human misery, and they need to be dealt with.
Do you say that entering a country...
We've got to have, if we're going to solve this, we have to have a grown-up solution.
Yeah.
Not a dog whistle one, not a populist one, not something that plays to the lowest common denominator.
Do you believe Suella Braverman's the answer? Do you believe Suella Braverman's the answer?
I have already said very clearly, I mean, say what you like about the reappointment of Suella Braverman. I don't want to go into that now. But I have already said in terms to her face a week ago in the House of Commons during her first incarnation as Home Secretary that I do not agree with her immigration policy because I think that it won't work and I think it is dog whistle and I think it's wrong. We need a grown-up solution to this, and that means that putting in the heavy lifting, the hard work to build the relationships. And I know it's got the word Europe in it, and I know some people find that offensive, but we actually have to work with our European colleagues if we're going to crack this problem properly and once and for all.
Sir Roger Gale, thank you as ever, MP for North Thanet. Always a pleasure to have you on. You lot got right wound
well,
up.
I suppose it's his show. He has the right to have the last word. I have the right to point out that he was cancelled on ITV, and really, why should we have to listen to this? I don't. I won't. But he's got he's got a showcase here on Talk TV, and it's disturbing. It's disturbing that he can peddle these half-truths. I must say, I was very impressed with Sir Roger Gale. Well done.